We are live from the Panari Hotel for a very interesting edition of the Monday Report, because we want to talk about something that must be important to each and every Kenyan, and that's matters to do with food security. Now, food security is part of President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda, and it's a very crucial part of the Big Four agenda, bearing in mind at least 70% of Kenyans are small-scale or smallholder farmers, and that's something that concerns them as well. So on one hand, you have a country that talks about being serious about agriculture, that has a big percentage of its population engaged in agriculture as well. But on the other hand, you have boring statistics. For example, Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa recently announcing or reaffirming that there are about 23 counties that are at risk of drought. 2.5 or so million Kenyans also who are at risk of having issues related to famine, possibly leading up to death. So where is the disconnect? Where is the missing link between a country that for all intents and purposes should have figured out what to do with agriculture, but there seems to be a missing link? And that's what we'll be discussing today here on the Monday Report. I'm not alone. I'm here with Mashima Kapombe, and she'll be helping engage with the audience on this. But let me introduce my panel who are on standby just to help us understand some of the issues around food security. And I'll start from my far left there, where we have Honorable Geoffrey Kaituko, a special advisor in the Office of the Deputy President. Welcome to the program. And right next to him, we have Honorable Mary Nzomo, CEC, Ministry of Agriculture, Trans Nzoia County. She has other titles which she'll be telling us about a bit later on. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We also have Professor Hamadi Boga, PS, Crop Development and Agricultural Research. PS, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. And
last but not least, we have Michelle Kagari, a director at One Acre Fund. Welcome and karibu sana.
Thank you.
And of course, to our viewers at home, you can weigh in on this discussion. 22422 is the SMS line, and the hashtag, as always, is the Monday Report. PS, I think, let me start with you just to understand where we are as a country. And I began in my introduction by talking about one crucial factor or aspect of the Big Four agenda is food security. And so when you go onto the website www.big4.delivery, you see a listing of the aspirations when it comes to food security. The hope is to reduce by 50% the number of food insecure in the country, reduce food costs by about 47%, and increase agriculture's contribution to the country's GDP by about 48%. As you now reflect on those aspirations, some would say we are almost halfway through the president's second term. How can Kenyans track where we are with those aspirations? And when you reflect on them, would you say those were realistic aspirations that we can achieve as a nation?
Yes, they are realistic aspirations, but they are not new. Mm-hmm. We have recast them so that they can be re-emphasized, so that we can revitalize our agriculture, because some of our institutions had declined. So it was important that out of the presidency, we have a rallying call to alert everybody that this is very important, that we refocus on being able to feed ourselves, because we have one of the fastest growing population. So we have a very increasing demand for food. So we have to keep pace. In the past, we have kept pace by increasing the acreage. Mm-hmm. But we are running out of that acreage, because most of the so-called high potential areas is where we are also settling and where subdivision of land is going on.
Okay.
And so it's running counter to our plans of increasing food production. So I think it's important that we rethink our agriculture, we diversify our agriculture, and it's doable, but it needs a certain shift in the way we think agriculture.
Tell me this, you say they are not new aspirations,
yes,
but nevertheless, it appears that there were weak links that led to the lack of realization. What would you say were some of them, before I allow the other panelists to respond?
Part of the challenge is overemphasis on maize. It's a big challenge, it's a cultural thing. Maize is a new crop to Kenya. It came here about 100 years ago with the British people. Our crops, the African crops, are sorghum, millet, cassava. Mm-hmm. We were food secure with them, and we abandoned them and went into maize. But only about 5% of Kenya is very suitable for maize, but it's also suitable for other crops like coffee, tea, and so on and so forth. So okay, you find on the area where you can actually grow maize commercially, it's very small, 5%. So that means we are not using the vast majority of our land. because we insist on growing maize. If we were growing sorghum, millet, and cassava, most of Kenya can support those crops. So part of the problem is our cultural attachment to maize, which is very recent and surprising. But if we wanted to be secure, and we want that, and I hope we can make this argument, we have to shift.
Fair enough. And I wanted to let you know there are several farmers in the audience, and maybe you might get to ask them directly.
No problem.
Why are you attached to maize? Michelle, let me bring you in. When one talks about farming in Kenya, for many, they get this image of rolling farms in some of the highlands, the so-called bread baskets and so forth. But the truth of the matter is farming is in the hands of the small-scale farmer. When you look at some of those statistics, even if you were to try and dispute them, it's a fact that a majority of Kenyans do rely on small-scale farming. My question to you is, what are the key challenges facing small-scale farmers when you look at the research you've done with 1 Acre Fund?
Thank you very much. And yes, it's true. 70% of Kenyans are either small-scale farmers or rely on small-scale farming.
You can confirm that by what you've done on the ground.
Absolutely, and this is data that's also backed by the Food and Agriculture Organization, so it's there. What we have found is that small-scale farmers have got two key challenges. One, access to high-quality farming inputs, that's the seed, the fertilizer, and this is because either the seed and fertilizer is miles away, or they don't have sufficient financing to get top quality. Two, the issues when you've got very high productivity required of small pieces of land and you want consistent high yield, those challenges have been solved. But the best farming practices to ensure you consistently maximize your yield hasn't transferred to small-scale farmers. So they just need the high-quality inputs and seed, and they need to understand the farming practices that will consistently give them high yield. Okay. And that's the model that 1 Acre Fund has trialed and demonstrated that it works.
I know that with time on the program today, you'll be able to share with us some of the successes of the farmers that you've worked with. But what has been your biggest frustration as an organization when dealing with farmers? What do you feel are some of the things that have taken the longest to transform in terms of the thinking of those you're talking to, or the change from what was tradition to what you're trying to instill in them now? What comes to the top of your mind?
I would actually reframe your question. And what we've actually found is that small-scale farmers are so hardworking.
They're so hardworking.
They want to make a sustainable livelihood. They want to have enough money to become prosperous, feed their families, and to grow. And all they need is a little bit of assistance. You don't need to calm down and be like, oh, I know everything, we are coming to tell you. No. Treat them as human beings. And that's what 1 Acre does. We address them and we work with them as customers. When they fail, we fail. And that's what has really led to the kind of partnership we have, where we've grown from 40 farmers about 10 years ago to 400,000 this year. And it's really inspiring when you see them. Okay.
I want to understand more about the model of your organization. I'll come back to you for that. But I want to bring in Honorable Nzomo in on this and figure out from you, when you hear 70% of Kenyans are actually small-scale farmers, from your county experience, what is the rough age group of that 70% from what you see in your county, if you were to approximate?
The average age of the farmer in my county is between 50 and 60 years old. And I would say this is an age that is a retiring age. This is an age that is very difficult to sell new technologies, new innovations to. And that's why we've been encouraging the young people to engage more in agribusiness, because we believe this category of young people, they are more receptive to new ideas, they are more receptive to technologies. And actually, when you want to disseminate information, they are able to use modern technology, given that even the number of extension officers are very few on the ground. When you want to use e-extension, these are people who are able to make use of technology and be able to search for information in the net and be able actually to transform. And I've been challenging the young people because on Saturdays we have a pull out in the Nation newspaper, which talks about Seeds of Gold. It's full of success stories and testimonies of young people who have done agribusiness, as opposed to maybe that ordinary farmer there who does farming and says I'm just a farmer. In fact, in Trans Nzoia, I tell my farmers to introduce themselves as agripreneurs.
Agripreneurs.
Because agriculture is not an activity for somebody who doesn't have anything to do. It is something that can transform your life.
Because farming is now a devolved function.
Yes.
Are you able to tell us, because we want to understand how seriously are county governments taking farming? In the county government that you serve, for the last 2 financial years,
yes,
how much of your investment in agriculture, what percentage of investment has been in agriculture, both the recurrent part of it and of course also the development part of it?
I would say that in terms of percentage, it's about 6% of the county budget. We are not quite there because we should be at 10%. But I would say that with devolution, this is the best thing that happened for this nation, and more so for the farmers. Because with devolution, we are able to identify farmers' priorities as per county, because we believe there is no one fit for all. So we are able to, when you are developing our county integrated development plans, we are able to engage with the farmers through public participation. They are able to prioritize their activities. We are able to open up and be accountable to them, because actually this is even entrenched in the constitution.
Okay.
And you find that since devolution, we've been able to provide tailor-made products for our farmers, because it is informed by what the farmers need, not what somebody else, maybe from above, believes is adequate for them.
I can see the audience here itching to weigh in, and I'll give them a chance to do so. But before that, let's hear from Honorable Kaituko. Honorable Kaituko, you heard what the PS had to say about the Big Four. Some of the plans there, not new, but being worked on to ensure that they are actualized. My question to you is this: when you look at government's intervention in farming, do you think it's more garnered towards large-scale farming, or do you see deliberate attempts to support smallholder farmers? How would you respond from your assessment?
Thank you very much for that question. From my assessment, I think much of the support from government goes to small-scale farmers. And
can you justify that? For they are here, and I know that that's what they might ask, but
yes, I think in terms of our commitment, we understand that agriculture is primarily in the hands of small-scale farmers, and agriculture being, for a long time, it was under the national government, but it got devolved. And I think from that perspective, at the national level, our work is mainly to define the policy and to create the environment for the small-scale farmer to flourish and to do their work. Secondly, it is to get them support from development partners like One Acre Fund, and we appreciate the work they're doing, like supporting 400,000 farmers in Western Kenya and parts of the Rift. There are others like Feed the Future of the US government, and then we also have support from the World Bank. All that support comes through the government of Kenya, and it goes to the farmers in different parts of the country. But I think the PS will be better placed to help me in responding to that question. Okay. Thank you.
And PS, I'll come back to you. I'm told we have a question that needs to be asked right now. So let me bring in Mashrima Kapombe, who can help us with that. Mashrima?
Kuna maswali mengi tu ambayo yanahusiana na masuala kadha wa kadha. Mojawapo ni kuhusiana na wale wadudu ambao wanaathiri mimea. Kuna wengine ambao wanahoji swala la mtaala kuhusiana na kilimo, na kuna wengine ambao wanahusiana na masuala ya sera katika kilimo. Acha tuanze na mama hapa aweze kutueleza. Grace Choke kutoka kaunti ya Nandi, swali lake ni lipi?
Jina langu ni Grace Choke kutoka Nandi County. Swali langu ni, mimi ni mkulima wa mahindi.
Anza tena tafadhali.
Majina yangu ni Grace Choke Chelagat. Natoka Nandi County. Mimi ni mkulima wa mahindi. Huwa tunapanda mahindi na kuna watoto wanakula hao mahindi. Ndio ningependa nichue dawa ya hao watoto. Hiyo tu.
Hai, asante. Kuna mwingine hapa alikuwa na swali kuhusiana na bei ya mazao. Anza na jina lako tafadhali.
And I believe my panelists are noting the questions, and we'll come back and get a round of answers. Go ahead.
Kwa majina ni Kiprotich Laban, na mimi
naomba ongeze sauti kidogo.
Ishikilie hivi.
Kwa majina ni Kiprotich Laban, na mimi ni mwanafunzi katika chuo kikuu cha JKUAT. Nina swali kuhusu bei duni kuhusiana na mazao. Kwa mfano ni mazao kama chai, kama ninapotoka katika kaunti ya Kericho. Ni lipi ama ni yapi serikali imefanya ama inaweza kufanya kuhusu kuboresha hiyo bei? Na asante.
Na asante sana Kiprotich. Kuna swali lingine hapa kuhusiana na mtaala. Nadhani mkulima huyu anafahamika kama Nahashon Mugi. Tafadhali.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Nahashon Mugi. I'm a farmer from Murang'a County, and I'm also the national chairman Fruit Tree Nursery Operators Association of Kenya. My question was on TVET program, which I took part in preparing in 2013, and agriculture being a devolved function, I have not seen it working at the county level. I would like to know why the TVET is not applicable to the local technical schools, because I tend to believe it is the only avenue that can take majority of the unemployed youth, especially in value addition and in horticulture value chains. Where is it? I think this will be answered by the three panelists here, because I think they know the TVET program. Thank you.
Asante sana. Wacha tusonge kwa Samuel Uiru ambaye ni mkulima wa mifugo wa maziwa.
Kama vile amesema ni Samuel Uiru na hivi karibuni nimeona katika nchi yetu county governors wanajaribu kuweka mitungi ya maziwa karibu kila sehemu. Nauliza kwa nini haiwezi kuwa wa federate hizi cooling plants na kutengeneza a plant where manufacturing can take place, so that milk can have the value added for the benefit of the farmer, the small farmer who is down there. So my question is the government in collaboration with the county government putting place the systems where the manufacturing of milk can be done, so that the value addition can be done? The other point is, when we talk about the industrialization in our Big Four agenda, and bearing in mind that we are putting in the young men, and we are asking the young people to go back into agriculture, in a little while they'll go back to the industries that are coming up. And I hear from Madam Zomo that they are encouraging young men to go into agriculture. Are they seeing a problem that is coming when the young men will opt to go into industries rather than to the agriculture?
Thank you very much. And I think you also mean young women, men and women. Thank you so much, Wahiga.
That's a fair point. Very interesting questions that we have there. And I know we're due for a break, but before we take that break, let's hear a response from PS and of course Michelle as well. And we'll have the other panelists also responding to some of those very interesting questions. PS, let's start with you.
Shukran kwa maswali yenu mazuri. Kwanza kuhusu wale wadudu viwavi na wadudu wengine wa aina yoyote. Ukiwa na changamoto hii, kila sehemu kuna maduka yale ambayo yanauza madawa. Yale pia yanaweza kupeana habari kuhusu zile changamoto mnazo zikumba. Kwa hivyo lile duka liwe ni mshirika wako katika ukulima wako, kwa sababu wao wana dawa za kila aina na wanaweza kukwambia dawa hii ni ya lile na dawa hii ni ya lile. Na pia county governments zetu ndizo ambazo zinahusika na swala zima la extension, yani zile huduma za mkulima. Kwa hivyo penge kwa vizuri ukijua katika sehemu yako ni nani ambaye anapeana zile huduma za extension, ndio ukiwa na changamoto wewe unaweza kupata habari kutoka kwake. Na pia muhimu kabisa, mlime kwa ushirika, ili wakulima kwa wakulima muweze kuelimishana, uweze kujifunza kutoka kwa mkulima mwenzako, ndio uweze kuboresha kilimo chako. Kwa hivyo sitakupa jina la dawa kwa sababu dawa ni nyingi zile ambazo zimepitishwa na majina ni ya kitaalamu, lakini ukifika pale mashinani kwenye ile agrovet na ukishirikiana na wakulima wenzako mnaweza kupata hiyo elimu. Na pia kama Wizara ya Kilimo tuna SMS service ambapo kila mkulima anaweza kujisajili kwa kutuma ujumbe. Kama unatumia Kiswahili unatuma ujumbe unaosema kilimo kwa 40130. Ukituma ujumbe kwa 40130 itakwambia ni extension service ya Ministry of Agriculture, na ina habari kuhusu huyo mdudu unayemtaja, na kuhusu ukulima wa mahindi, na kuhusu ukulima wa maharage, na tunazidi kupanua ili kila mtu ujumbe umfikie.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Sijui kama unaweza jibu swali lake kwa ufupi pia.
Swali lake lilikuwa sana ni kuhusu maziwa. Na ngoma ni hiyo. Lazima kama mkulima mdogo usilime peke yako. Ule udogo wako unaweza kuutia thamani kwa kushirikiana na wenzako. Kwa mfano nilikwenda Meru show, nikakuta Meru Farmers Cooperative. Hawa wanazalisha maziwa, wanakula zao, paka wana processing plant zao. Baada ya Brookside na KCC ni wao Kenya. Na pia pengine umesikia kuhusu hawa Githunguri Dairy Cooperative.
Okay.
Kwa hivyo ukikimbia peke yako hutafika mbali, kama msemo unavyosema. Lakini ukitembea na wenzako ndio utafika mbali. Kwa hivyo tusisitize kwamba na sisi katika ile mikakati yetu ya kilimo ambayo tunasema sisi kama serikali kufuata mkulima mmoja ni dhiki, ni dharubu yani ipata kuwa na kazi. Lakini tukiwapata wakiwa kwenye makundi, inakuwa rahisi kufikisha ujumbe, inakuwa rahisi kuwasaidia, inakuwa rahisi kukuza ile value chain.
Okay. PS, asante sana. And of course, before we take that break, Michelle, your thoughts, you've heard some of the complaints, assorted complaints from farmers on the challenges that they are facing. How does a model like the one you propose plug into and address some of the challenges that they are talking about, and what more can government do from where you sit to assist small-scale farmers?
Thank you very much. Certainly, I think as Professor Boga said, and one of the things that resonated with me was the access to information, and making sure that that the information is readily accessible and can be used by small-scale farmers. Certainly, one of the things that the model that we've got has really dealt with is making sure that small-scale farmers have ready access through our extension workers who live and work with our farmers on the best farming practices, the ways that they can deal with pesticides and things like that. So that's certainly one of the frameworks that can be utilized by government to leverage and ensure that small-scale farmers are able to work together, are able to collaboratively access and leverage information to maximize their value chains.
It sounds like collaboration is the key to helping small-scale farmers, and I know the other panelists also have some thoughts on the same, and we'll be giving them a chance to respond to that shortly. And lots of questions. Mashima just looking at me saying, Wahiga, send it over here. We've got more questions for them, and that's what we'll be doing on the other side of this break. You're watching the Monday Report. We're also seeing your feedback on social media. The hashtag is Monday Report, and 22422 is the SMS line. We'll look at some of those thoughts and carry on with this very important discussion on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.